Still watching our live coverage, of course, of the mid-year budget review. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta in Parliament. Of course, you've seen the very interesting look on his face to the questions and the suggestions that are coming on the floor of Parliament. Let me quickly take you through some of the things that he's been putting across so far. Well, he speaks about the GDP by first quarter of this year. That was 6.6%, as against the 4.4% the same moment last year. He speaks about the fiscal deficits. That's 2.7% now compared to 4% in 2016, which is last year. He speaks about the Bank of Ghana that's cutting the policy rate by 21%, the interest rates that have gone down by more than 500 basis points. He speaks about the consistent fall in headline inflation. Average interest rates are 16.81%. Of course, as of last year, reduced to about 12% in June 2017. He speaks about the ballooning debt of the country, and we're looking at 5.9 billion cedis as of 2008 through to 122.3 billion cedis as of the end of 2016. We're back in Parliament. Let's go and take the reviews from members of Parliament on the floor, and then when we return, we'll give you a recap and have some analysis.
Initiative. Mr. Speaker, Honourable Secretary said, government has, over the medium term, embarked on a number of projects to create more jobs for Ghanaians. And he went on and on. And then he said, the President recently commissioned the Commander Sugar Factory to help create employment. Mr. Speaker, we all know what happened to the Commander Sugar Factory. In less than 2 months, we all know what happened to the Commander Sugar Factory. Mr. Speaker, again in paragraph 234 of the same media review, the Honourable Minister told us that government has undertaken to engage 100,000 youth in productive sectors of the economy. Mr. Speaker, ask the youth whether they saw this in action. Mr. Speaker, but for us, like I said, we cut our costs according to our cloth. We believe we can comfortably engage 60,000 unemployed youth in the YEA program under the sanitation model, under the grant.
Thank you very much, Honourable Ricketts Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the opportunity to contribute to the statement made by the Minister for Finance on the mid-year fiscal policy review. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I want to thank the Honourable Minister for, if I can borrow from the majority leader's words, for presenting or transmitting information to us. Mr. Speaker, the Minister transmitted information to us all right, but he transmitted from out of coverage area. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we've been talking about, debt. The government says they are borrowing. Now there's a new word for it, leveraging, which is not borrowing, claiming. Now, since we left office in December 2016, as the minister said, the debt was 122 billion. To date, the debt is now 137 billion, which means that since this government came in, you have borrowed 15 billion. If you take it by the day, that is 3 billion If you take it, if you take it by the month, that's 3 billion. If you take it, Mr. Speaker, if you take it by the year, that is 36 billion Ghana cedis. Now, by 2020, when this government leaves office, the debt will be 140 billion. I heard the Honorable Deputy Minister saying a whopping 122 billion. They will leave office by borrowing 140 billion, which is over and above the whopping 122 that if they go by the rate at which they are going. Mr. Speaker, my honorable friend, Honorable Atuforson, talk about cosmetic figures. Mr. Speaker, it is hard to believe that this government is not meeting its target. Yet, they claim that the GDP in nominal terms will go to 202 billion. Mr. Speaker, I want to be able somebody to work out this math for me. How come the government gets 67.5 as debt to GDP ratio? Mr. Speaker, this government is cooking figures for us. Mr. Speaker, this is House of Records. If, I'll prove it. Mr. Speaker, if you have a debt of 137 billion or 137.5 billion, and you are claiming that you are getting a debt to GDP of 67.5, what is your GDP? Mr. Speaker, I will leave that. Mr. Speaker, this government is basically not achieving its target. It is downsizing the things that they said they are going to do. They are not paying capital spending. They are not paying any money. They are not paying goods and services. Yet they claim that they are going to achieve what they said they're going to achieve.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, I want last point.
Dr. Anthony Akutukoso.
Mr. Speaker, 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes.
I said 2 more minutes. Yeah, 2. You cut it up.
Yes, Honorable.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am tempted to educate some of my colleagues. Mr. Speaker, my good friend just said that he could not do the math. He talked about the debt being at 137 billion. How did we get 68%? Mr. Speaker, if you can take his calculator, take your calculator, 137.5 divided by 202.8, what is it? Mr. Speaker, he's a good man. He went to a good school, Harvard. So I expect more out of him. Mr. Speaker, the truth must be told. What the minister did is he used the word cooking figures. I don't expect a former minister to use those words. Mr. Speaker, if you don't believe the figures, say so. Mr. Speaker, you're talking about cooking figures. Cooking figures. This man, Honorable Fikete, talked about the inherited inflation of 18%, and they went to 15%. Mr. Speaker, I want to remind you, maybe he's too young. Inflation, Mr. Speaker, not too long ago, when MPP came to power, inflation was 41%. 41, not 18. Mr. Speaker, I want to go on the positive side. Mr. Speaker, I want to go on the positive side. The minister came and said that he was going to abolish the special import levy. Did he abolish it or not?
He did.
He was going to abolish VAT on financial services. Did he abolish it or not? He was going to abolish excise VAT on petroleum duties. Did he abolish it? Mr. Speaker, he was going to reduce VAT on real estate. Did he do that? Mr. Speaker, Ghana is working again. Mr. Speaker, why do I say that? Mr. Speaker, not too long ago, Fitch rated Ghana B negative outlook. As soon as the minister gave his speech, guess what happened? B positive outlook. Mr. Speaker, all the macro indicators are going in the right direction. Inflation is coming down. The deficit, which was at 9.3, is now coming down to 6.5. Mr. Speaker, interest rates are going down. The trade balance is positive. Mr. Speaker, the primary balance is in a surplus. Mr. Speaker, Ghana is working again. Mr. Speaker, the reason Ghana is working again because you have people who admit the truth when they say it. Unlike those folks, when they are not meeting their targets, they start cooking up, making up numbers. Mr. Speaker, on the way forward, the Speaker has outlined the policies that are going to generate employment. The youth employment program within the next month is going to hire 60,000 people.
And in conclusion,
Mr. Speaker, I think that colleagues on the other side should admit that what we came to meet was messy. But because we are all patriotic Ghanaians, we ought to be looking forward. When you look forward, the confidence in Ghana is coming up. There's no more doom so. What else do you want? Interest rates are going down. What else do you want? Because it is good for you and me that Ghana begins to work again. I thank you.
Honorable Minority Leader, order. You have 10 minutes. Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker,
No interruptions.
I thank you for the opportunity to contribute to the statement made by the Honorable Minister for Finance. But Mr. Speaker, let me, for the record, raise two pertinent procedural issues to guide this House for tomorrow. The House on Friday approved the business statement of this House. In that business statement was a motion for a mid-year review of the budget. It does not take us only to come to the floor of Parliament and change that to a statement. Mr. Speaker, it does not serve the public interest nor the good people of Ghana for us to reduce a major issue of a statement on the economic policy of government and fiscal policy to Order 70, which says it shall not provoke debate. Mr. Speaker, the essence why this is a House responsible for deliberation is for the Minister of Finance, whilst he listens to both sides, to improve his economic and financial management for the good of the Ghanaian people. I think that we are walking wrong path in using a statement and not a motion to subject an important economic policy decision. But Mr. Speaker, in saying so, let me refer you to page 20 of the Minister's presentation, page 20. And Mr. Speaker, I'll do page 20 and 40, where he himself is now a contradiction in terms of what he wants this House to do. Mr. Speaker, I'm quoting from page 20, in particular paragraph 78 through 79, 80 and 81, and I'll come to page 42 to quote. And he states, Mr. Speaker, since the presentation and approval of the 2017 budget statement and economic policy by this August House in March, there have been some development both external and domestically which have necessitated a revision in the 2017 fiscal framework. How can he do this revision without an action of Parliament? It does not lie within his hand. Mr. Speaker, he goes further, and this is for my purpose. Paragraph 83, this is what he states. He says, to ensure that we do not compromise our fiscal consolidation objectives and targets, expenditures are planned to match the downward revision in revenues. He cannot realign expenditures and revenue without parliamentary approval. But the more important message is that he says that downward revision in revenues and expenditures, as well as reclassification of inflows from the sale of shares, have resulted in the revision of the fiscal deficit target from 6.5% of GDP to 6.3%. On whose authority can he revise that? You have forgotten. On whose authority can the Minister of Finance, just by a statement, come and announce to the Parliament of Ghana that I'm revising the deficit from 6.5% to 6.3%? No, no, no. So as far as we are concerned, what was approved in the Appropriation Act, we expect him that at the end of 2017, you report back to this House on 6.5%, because we are not involved in any process where you want to report on 6.3%. No, you must come back to this House. No, it does not lie within him to revise the target, Somoto, on his own. That is wrong. Mr. Speaker, he also talks about wage negotiation. And Mr. Speaker, the minister also talks about wage negotiation and happily is announcing to this House that they have, and I refer to page 38. So again, Mr. Speaker, on the 70 statement, no debate, yet his own statement was pregnant with matters of debate. And we are constrained from returning same issues with him. Mr. Speaker, on wage negotiations, Minister, when you started, for once I thought it was a Methodist bishop until I refused to sing the hymn with you. You said that on wage negotiations, you have been able to increase it by 11% for 2018. I had the privilege to chair tripartite and to supervise these negotiations. In 2016, government increased basic pay by 12%. You have done 11%, you say hallelujah, we should sing for you. 12%. Even with increasing cost of living, you are at 11%. Mr. Speaker, the minister in his statement also references bauxite and the fact that they are leveraging. And I'm happy he's sitting with the senior minister, who in London at the stock exchange, and I'm quoting you, Honourable Senior Minister, so that you and the Vice President, we will know. London Stock Exchange. He was there. He led a delegation of the Ghana Chamber of Commerce. Senior Minister, you said, and I quote, that the Chinese have agreed to lend 10 to 15 billion for bauxite and other projects. Your Vice President says there is no loan, it's not a loan. So lending 10 to 15 billion, and then he says it's not a loan. Whatever it is, you will be using Ghana's mineral resources as collateral, and you will need to come through for parliamentary processes and approval. But this was a government which demonized borrowing. You are in China to borrow, you are in the domestic market borrowing. The 15 billion you have borrowed, what have you done? Which school have you built? Which hospital have you built? Which road have you built with the 15 billion you have borrowed? So, Mr. Speaker, they talk about youth employment. The Honourable Deputy Minister of Local Government, we passed the Youth Employment Act, did the regulation. But Mr. Speaker, let me be coming to a conclusion on a major issue of debt. And Mr. Speaker,
Order.
Mr. Speaker, this is a government which demonized borrowing and said it was wrong to borrow, and that there was money here. Apart from walking in the corridor of China with a calabash begging for money to borrow, Mr. Speaker, listen to what the minister says, and I quote, paragraph 60, Mr. Speaker, debt management. This is what the minister says. Mr. Speaker, the medium-term debt management strategy for 2017-2019 is in fulfillment of Section 59 of the Public Financial Management Act 2016. He now respects the superiority of debt management of the President Mahama administration, which passed the Public Financial Management Act. Because you are referring to that act as a superior debt management strategy. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, senior high school students, second and third year, allowances for nurses and teachers are waiting for you, Minister. Don't come through a statement. Pay the outstanding allowances of nurses and teachers, and make sure you do equity to every Ghanaian student in the senior secondary school, not only first years and those entering. Mr. Speaker, so I conclude that next time on an important matter of this nature, the minister should come through the door by a motion and not a statement to restrain us from debating him. We are ready for you. At the end of 2017,
thank you very much,
go
Honorable
through
Minority.
the indicators.
Honorable Majority.
Thank you.
Furthermore, in view of the business before the House and the time at present, I order that sitting be extended beyond the regular hours. Honorable Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think it's important once again to restate the issue about whether or not we would have required a motion to debate the media review. Mr. Speaker, I think at the very outset, we laid this matter to rest. Mr. Speaker, whenever we have had a media review, it has always come with supplementary estimates. The supplementary estimate will require Parliament to take a decision on it. At the end of it all, Mr. Speaker will put a question. Mr. Speaker, our orders define question to me, and I'm quoting, except in respect of the question time or period and the question of privileges. Question means a proposal presented to Parliament or a committee thereof by the Speaker or the Chairman for consideration and decision or disposal in some manner. Mr. Speaker, which aspects of this statement or this information that has been transmitted to us requires of this Parliament to make a decision? Mr. Speaker, I cannot understand. And we are being told that to the extent that he mentioned the word revision, it still should have come by a motion. Mr. Speaker, if we are not careful, if finance ministers come to this house to tell us that GDP is going to grow at 7%, and later reality checks indicate to us that we can't grow at 7%, but we can only grow at 5%, that will require the minister to come to this house to seek approval. What kind of rationalization is this? Mr. Speaker, if we have to review downwards, and don't forget, in the budget that is presented to us, the appropriations bill allows the minister to spend up to a ceiling. If he goes beyond that, he requires parliamentary approval. If he doesn't, Mr. Speaker, and confines himself, he doesn't require any approval of this House. And so, if members are talking about you having to bring it for Parliament to make a decision on, Mr. Speaker, I fail to see what is involved in that. Mr. Speaker, now, the budget that came to us, the theme of that budget was sowing the seeds for growth and jobs. In other words, mid-year into the rolling out of that budget, Mr. Speaker, we should begin to question ourselves where we were and whether indeed we are making progress in all areas, on all fronts. If we are not making progress, then perhaps with introspection, we then may have to change our steps. But Mr. Speaker, where were we as a nation before the minister came to this house? The question to ask ourselves is whether there was high fiscal deficit of 9.3% of GDP on a cash basis as against 5% on cash basis in 2016. Is that the case? Yes. Mr. Speaker, there was a primary deficit of 1.4% of GDP against a target surplus of 1.2%. Is that the case? Mr. Speaker, there was high debt to GDP ratio amounting to 73.1% of GDP. Is that true? Also, inflation registered end year at 15.4%. Is that the case? There was low credit to the private sector and high interest rate. Indeed, 91-day treasury rate was 16.4%. And there was weak domestic revenue mobilization, low external reserves of 2.8 months of import cover, and there were policy reversals, including some unconstrained expenditures, amounting to 7.7 billion. Mr. Speaker, today, where are we? Half year. Overall GDP growth rate of 6.3%. Mr. Speaker, the GDP growth rate for the first quarter of 2017 was 6.6% against 4.4% for the same period in 2016. Is that a positive growth or a negative growth? Inflation reduced to 12.1% at the end of June 2017 from 15.4% in December 2016. True or false? Interest rates are on the decline. Mr. Speaker, the 91-day Treasury bill rates have reduced from 16.4% to 12.08%. True or false? And would that suggest to anybody that we are making significant progress in the management of the economy? Mr. Speaker, the fiscal deficit, the primary surplus, the gross international reserves, all these are registering positively on the radar of our economic management. And people are saying that nothing is being done. Mr. Speaker, we are being told that the figures are being cooked. It is GSS, the Ghana Statistical Service, that produced these figures. Mr. Speaker, if indeed, Mr. Speaker, I've spoken for just 5 minutes. The minority has spoken for 8 minutes. 8 minutes. I have spoken for just 6 minutes. Mr. Speaker, that is what he said. Mr. Speaker, I will not challenge that. Mr. Speaker, I will not challenge that. But indeed, Mr. Speaker, the agenda for development is on course. And we are told of the NHIS, the LEAP, the Maslow, the school feeding, planting for food and jobs, fertilizers and seedlings that have been supplied at a subsidized rate of 50%. Mr. Speaker, 2 years ago, government intended to give the fertilizers to farmers free of charge. That in principle was good, except that when you went to the farmers, nothing went to them. Nothing went to them. And the farmers, when we went to go also, implored us that even if they were to buy, they were prepared. But the policy of giving it to them at no cost is hurting them because they're not supplying the products to them. Today, at 50%, all of them, those who intend to buy, who desire to buy, do have them. Mr. Speaker, that is the difference. That is the difference in policy. Mr. Speaker, 822 agri extension officers have been posted to the fields to positively affect agriculture. 822. We are told that those of them, before the introduction of the 822 into the fields, those of them in the fields, the ones that had some more years to serve, had only 4 years. What it meant is that 4 years from now, if we do not recruit agri extension officers, those of them in the field would have all retired. The final words. Mr. Speaker, so there is something positive The people of this country are seeing good signals, and certainly by the close of the year, they will live to see the good dividends from the budget that was read by the minister responsible for finance. Mr. Speaker, so this indeed is a veritable Asempapa budget. Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister for Finance. Honorable Minister for Finance, you may have the last word. Honorable Minister for Finance, any concluding remarks?
Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I truly want to thank you for this very vigorous exchange of ideas and lots of very important comments which the ministry will take on board. It is an important week for the nation, one of unity, and we shall work together to make this country great again. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, if there is even a scintilla of lingering doubts, let it be clear once again that the process this morning is very appropriate. It is essentially informative. It does not seek any parliamentary approval or essentially a budgetary statement or imposition of tax or any such matter which falls exclusively in the bosom of the Parliament of the Republic. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. And with that, Honorable Minister, thank you for attending to the House and making this statement, and you are entitled to it. Honorable Majority Leader, I'm inclined to let us end the proceedings for today. I don't need any motion, but I'm inclined to ask if there is any particular matter you want to bring to the attention of the House.
Mr. Speaker, that is so. The Speaker, the Attorney General is in the House, and there are some other ministers who are with us to present bills to this House. Speaker, that is in respect of item number 6 on the original order paper. So if I may, crave the indulgence of members to let us do at least those ones. And the other, and then also for the for item number 5, we can do 5 and 6, the Speaker.
Those are live pictures from Parliament where the Finance Minister has been presenting the mid-year budget review. Of course, there's the debate as to whether or not it was supposed to be a review or a statement by the Minister of Finance. And you heard that banter, not really a banter, but you heard the thoughts of the minority leader and the thoughts of the majority leader. So before that was the Minister presenting the mid-year review, and I spoke to you already about what he says about the GDP figures. Of course, the majority leader has also gone through it. He speaks about the fall armyworm and what government is doing about it. That basically says that some of the targets have been met. In fact, in some cases, the targets have been exceeded. He speaks about planting for food and jobs and what has been done so far. He speaks about the fiscal deficit that's been reviewed from 6.5% to 6.3%, and that is a bone of contention that the minority leader has to pick with the finance minister there. He speaks also about free SHS and the school feeding program, etc., and then goes on to outline the macroeconomic targets for 2017. So after that, then the debate sort of started between the majority and the minority leader, the majority and the minority sides of the House. The minority are calling this budget review, the budgets, of course, which is being reviewed, the Assembly budget. And if you recall, this was because the budget itself was called the Asempa budget. Well, before I go through that with you, we'll have to quickly go back to Parliament, where my colleague George Rafe is standing by with Mr. Rickett Hagan. Well, we don't have that at the moment, so let me just quickly go through to you what the conversation that has gone on between the minority and the majority on the floor of Parliament. Well, the person who started that conversation on the minority side was former Deputy Finance Minister Atu Forson, who says that by cutting down certain budget allocation for workers, what government is doing at the moment is cutting down about 600 million cedis of budget allocation for workers. He says that the numbers are cosmetic and that government is accumulating arrears by failing to pay contractors. Of course, he didn't have a lot of time and the heckling that was going on the floor of Parliament. Another member of Parliament on the minority side speaks of a 3 billion a month that is being averagely added to the debt stock. It says that the economy is on life support and that the Ministry actually of Finance should hasten slowly. That came from Member of Parliament Fifi Kwete there. He says the journey is long, the reality will soon dawn on them. He also raises concerns about major promises that has been made by the NPP administration, which he says nothing has been heard of. He says that so far, as far as he is concerned, there was no creativity in terms of revenue policy. Well, of course, that is something that the majority will not agree to. One major question, by the way, that has come up is whether or not government has been able to raise revenue in any way. And those are questions that we'll be hoping to get answers from when we go back to Parliament for some analysis on this particular matter. Still from the minority side, they believe that inflation figures being debated, that were being debated, and whether or not the nuisance taxes have been abolished. The majority side says that, well, Fitch rated Ghana a B minus, but now that has been improved to B plus, and that is something to celebrate. Well, let's go over to Parliament now and get some reviews on what has been presented in Parliament. George Rafe is standing by with those.
He presented did not surprise me. One thing that astonished me was the downward revision in the budget deficit or government borrowing target. And it's obvious from the statement that was presented that the government is prioritizing fiscal consolidation and debt stabilization. This explains why they have revised downward their borrowing target. The deficit target is their borrowing target. Now, this is understandable. It's welcome also, given our recent history of building up debt to an unsustainable level. It's understandable that they are cautious about their borrowing and their debt accumulation. But you'll find that the revised deficit is going to involve sacrificing some expenditure. And this is principally because the revenues have not flowed into the coffers as they had projected. Now, the cutback to spending presents a threat to economic growth and economic activity unless private sector spending and investment pick up the slack. So one can hope that the gradual stabilization of the macroeconomy and the kicking off of the government's stimulus measures and other real sector interventions will stimulate private sector spending and investment so that can fill the gap which will be left by this spending cutback. That's what one would one would hope. But otherwise, you find that the priority is to continue with fiscal consolidation so that we can stabilize the debt, the public debt burden at the minimum.
Let me get your thoughts also on this. For a lot of analysts, we're looking forward to a presentation that will consolidate investors' confidence in this economy and government commitment to be fiscally prudent. Have you seen that with what the minister has said with respect to these reviews?
Well, I think, the decision to revise downward the deficit and to indicate strongly a commitment to improved fiscal management will provide some positive assurance to investors. You would know that in recent years, the major concern about the Ghanaian economy has been the trajectory of public borrowing and debt accumulation. So this should provide some assurance to investors. However, I think we clearly have a revenue challenge, which also will concern some investors, and analysts. We clearly have a revenue challenge, and it seems to reflect a trend in recent years. And it's important that we take serious measures to improve the revenue mobilization effort. I had hoped that the responses within Parliament to the presentation would have highlighted the revenue challenge of the state, and that the conversation would have shifted towards a bipartisan consensus on how to improve domestic revenue mobilization in Ghana. Because domestic revenue mobilization ultimately is what will relieve us of this intolerable debt burden.
Finally, on the IMF program, it looks like it's clear they are ending in April 2018. For you, worried we are not going to extend the program?
Well, I cannot say now, what is the direction with the program. There's been confusion over whether it's going to end in April 2018 or December 2018. But what I can say is this. To complete the program, in particular, the structural reforms underpinning the fiscal measures we have been taking, we certainly would need more time. We have so far received only half of the program's financing. And so it's sensible to expect that we would allow more time to receive the remaining financing and to complete the remaining measures. That's my view on that.
So that was Leslie Mensah. He is with the Institute of Fiscal Studies with respect to giving us his purview or views on this particular presentation by the Finance Minister. And it looks like he has some concerns, even though he believes that, yes, they have made some progress. There's still some areas that is a little bit challenging, and they need to actually work on that one. So let me still bring in some reactions from members of Parliament here on this whole presentation by the Finance Minister. Honourable, welcome to our coverage of the mid-year review by the Finance Minister. For you, as a member of Parliament representing your constituency as well, are you worried about these cuts and how that would impact on whatever program the government wants to take or not?
Yeah, thank you very much. First and foremost, let me put this on record. I'm disappointed but not surprised that this is how they chose to go. I mean, this was a government that even within 100 days was touting 103 achievements. I think you can recall that. And when it came to the crunch for the House to debate the issue of what the Finance Minister had presented, they were running to hide under the facade of a statement. So it can tell, it's right from the onset. You can see that the government was very uncomfortable with opening up the issue for debate. Because, like we said, it's hollow. They only painted window dressing to hide the inability to perform within the last 6 months. And that is abundantly very clear. And so that is what we want to place on record. Now, you are talking about a government that says that external debt is not growing. In the Finance Minister's own statement, he presented a figure of $138.9 billion. I'm sure it's on the record. And also alluded to the fact that when they were taking over power in January 7th, 2017, it was $122 billion. So just do your common mathematics. That within a space, and this was as at the end of May. Within a space of 4 months.
How do you respond to the argument that all these borrowings are geared towards managing our debt position? you need to borrow cheaper funds to actually bring down the whole overall debt.
In fact, I can say that if it's not for the voodoo economics that we are being subjected to by the finance minister and Dr. Baumia, it's incredible. How can you go and borrow long-term securities like the 2.25 billion that we went to borrow at 19.75%? For short-term,
you think that is not cheap compared to the previous bond that was
the short-term securities, the 5-year bonds attract 16.34%. Do the difference. 16.35% and then 19.75%. Look at the difference. Almost 3.4% difference. And then you go there. So how can you borrow at 19.75% to go and retire at 16.4% debt? Does it make sense? Just look at the economy. That's what I'm saying, that unless the MPP people think that we have sand in our heads. Otherwise, how can you go and borrow at 19.75% to retire at 16.34% debt? It doesn't make sense. You should rather be borrowing cheaper to retire more expensive.
And you think that is not happening?
It doesn't make sense.
You think that is not happening?
Just pointing out, how do you borrow at 19.75% to retire 16.5%? It doesn't make sense.
Thank you so much, Honorable. And this is still our coverage of the media.
And I'm saying that they should be candid with the good people of this country. Because I can tell you that, like some of the farcical claims they were making, they are borrowing so much, but it will not reflect in the level of debt.
Thank you so much, Honorable. And this is our coverage of the media review by the Finance Minister. And I have with me here Honorable Okujato. He's a member of Parliament as well and a former Deputy Minister of Education. You've been there before these presentations and all those things. For you, looking at what the minister has done, are you worried about any implications on your constituency as well in terms of capital expenditure? It has been cut.
Yes, certainly I'm worried, like most Ghanaians, especially as the finance minister stated today that they are hoping to clear arrears by 2019. During the campaign, they promised Ghanaian contractors that when they come into power, within the first 100 days of assuming the realms, the governance of our country, they will pay all contractors. Now you are telling us that in 2 years' time, by 2019, you have a situation where in this budget, the minister has not been able to give us confidence about new ideas, creative ways of generating revenue. There is a major revenue shortfall of over 2 billion cedis. And there is no indication even in this review that you are going to come up with creative ways. The only thing he says is that they are hoping to fight corruption at the ports. We need a revenue. And so if you have all of these promises, you promise that you will start the one district, one factory by June this year. You haven't achieved that. You promise that you are going to start paying the nursing and teacher trainees the allowances by first 3 months of this year. You haven't started that. And all we are hearing are revenue shortfalls and the fact that you are downsizing on a daily basis. No hope, no bold program that will create jobs for our people and will ensure that our contractors who are owed, companies will thrive. You have a situation where you are saying you will pay companies, you clear these arrears by 2019. What it means is that you are going to compound the unemployment situation where companies will have to shut down, they will have to lay off workers by 2019.
But what would you tell those who might also argue that faced with a challenge in revenue because you spend what you have, if revenue is not doing well because of a seasonality effect, which we've seen over the years, how do you manage that situation? Do you spend what you don't have so that you balloon your deficit, or you stagger this expenditure?
What you do is raise the revenue. You have to raise the revenue.
From where we've seen Q1, and this is not just with this government, and we've seen in other previous governments as well, where revenue numbers are not good, especially in Q1. Q2, there's been a marginal improvement, but it could have been better. So where do you spend?
You are right that the inability to raise revenue as a country has been a perennial challenge. But that is why you have a new team in place that during the campaign, you recall, promised that they had a magic wand. That first of all, they said that if we fought corruption, the money is here in Ghana. They said that if we were able to implement creative strategies, we will be able to raise the revenue here, and that Ghana is rich. The candidate said it many times, that Ghana is not poor. The money is in Ghana. So where has the money gone to? So we can't buy that excuse that we couldn't raise revenue. Revenue generation is a functionality of the executive. They must come up with creative ways to do it. And you cannot continue with this situation where virtually every promise you made is not seeing the light of day. Free SHS is not covering the three-year batches. Only first years are going to benefit. Even the allocation of 400 million cedis is woefully inadequate. You promised that you start factories by June this year to create jobs for our youth. It hasn't happened. There is no indication when the first factory in a district will start.
Honorable, some will say that it's supposed to be taken. Really, they are taking proposals, they are receiving applications. At least there are certain things on the drawing board for you to say that we've seen certain things being taken, rather than it not being implemented at all.
You see, nobody asked them to give us a target. You gave us a target that by June this year, the factories will come alive. You gave us that target. So we are only, as a responsible minority, holding you accountable. That's where are the factories that you said. You promised that you pay contractors within the first 100 days of assuming power. That is what you told road contractors when you met them during the campaign. Then now we are hearing that by 2019 is when you hope to clear arrears. I mean, that is not acceptable. You see, we shouldn't have a situation where during campaigns, all kinds of promises are made. We do not properly analyze. All kinds of promises are made, lectures are delivered, the people are carried along. They want to give you, try you and see, and then you get the power, and then you are making excuses. We cannot continue that way.
Do you think that what they have done, they will not end the year on a good note in terms of being realistic with the numbers and moderating their projections?
Clearly, the signs are worrying. The signs are worrying. Let me state that as a minority, we still contend that the approach they use, coming by a statement and not a motion, we contend that it is wrong. When you are revising targets, this is a house of records. What we have approved in March this year is what stands. You have come to give us information. We should be able to amend the old information with the new information that you have brought. Saying that
George Rafe with a member of parliament there, Okujetua Blackwa there, speaking about his concerns on this statement that was placed on the floor of parliament. Well, one of the major things that the government, of course, promised to do was to remove what they called the nuisance taxes. Well, we'll be going to Abosokan, one of the groups that Abosokan has, one of the groups, of course, that were very excited about that particular policy initiative. And so we'll be going there shortly to find out what they make of this mid-year budget review, whether or not it is reflecting the removal of those nuisance taxes, is reflecting in their business. But before we do that, here is the Minister of Finance on whether or not those initiatives actually worked.
Review of import duty and tax exemptions. Mr. Speaker, while government's focus is on reducing taxes to enhance production, we are also determined to tackle the systemic abuse in the exemptions regime. There shall be a comprehensive review of the regime on import duty exemptions and tax reliefs with a view to eliminating abuses and improving efficiency in the application of these incentives. To this end, the review will cover, among others, the following exemptions and tax reliefs as a matter of urgency: import duties, taxes and levies payable by MDAs and other government departments, import duties on all forms of taxes and levies payable by both domestic and foreign companies, suppliers and contractors executing projects and contracts in the country, import duty on all forms of taxes and levies payable by employees, directors and senior officials of both domestic and foreign companies, suppliers and contractors executing projects in the country, import duties and all forms of taxes and levies payable by both domestic and foreign companies and investors doing business in the country, and import duties on all forms of taxes and levies payable by non-governmental and charity organizations. Mr. Speaker, as a transition arrangement henceforth, applications for these import duties...
So that was Minister of Finance Ken Ofori-Atta in the budget presentation itself, actually announcing those taxes will be cut. Let's go over to Abosokai. Like I said, it's a vehicle spare parts hub, and they were one of the groups that were most excited about that announcement. Daniel Dazi is standing by there. Let's find out whether indeed it is reflected on the ground.
He and most of government is satisfied with the performance of this government in the past 6 months. But for people here in Abosiokai, one major promise from the main budget statement that was read earlier in the year rings in their minds. That budget saw the abolition of the 1% import duties on spare parts for vehicles. And we want to know if after the effecting of that particular tax review, there are felt the effect here on the market. I have with me some spare parts dealers here. Let's find out from them what they think. Opening Anape area Mitchell. Pocho, what ton Jaywa?
I'm a mechanical.
Inti beginning of the year yet say ya tete etwobi ewo spare parts a ye cry if ya manone edeba Ghana no wo we mechanic no say wo to spare parts na wo say insane bi aba ne bo no mu ana
insane de enyina fa akon wo be ko ba bi na wo fo be ko ba bi na wo soro insane de enyina fa akon eduru ba bi a wutimi hu say wo ko na kotwa de no wo be ko na shots na be kwa obekwa bia benya no be 3000 obekwa we ka just 5000 nti ebo ne de ewrezi na ekofom ti sana akoye
na omo tete omo de ne so no omo se adenti na ebo na ba fam
omo se duru ba bi omo koyi omo niema no a ya yi tasi bibre fees nti na ma omo so mate omo niema so ayede aba fom no
na omo de no ewo so no so de no omo ka
omo de stera omo se omo mu hwe omo zo mu hwe nti no omo niema se no beton abode nsa no mbede omo beton
Inti wo compare because me sure say baby ne bone wo form na normally wo beto. Inti wo compare generally wedjuma wo ye no the cost na ko form ana.
Oh the cost no me hu ba bia ho ne man ye fon de me mtum se me de eyema me koto a me nya kakra firi hu tim de mu se eyema me kama.
And for how long now we who sa insisai ewo ebo nim and our business awo ye nim?
Oh, I fear you see me from 23 March me be yan me who say difference kakra dey about nyama to do.
So for this particular trader, his observation is that the prices have come down for spare parts in some of the shops, but for some of the shops, the prices are still high. When I asked him the reasons that the vendors have been given for reducing their prices, what he said is that they've told him some taxes have been removed at the ports. However, there are some who are saying they are not seeing any such tax reductions, and so they are unable to reduce their prices for him. He says generally for March till now, it looks like his cost of doing business has gone down because of these changes he has seen in some of the spare parts. Let me ask.
More of that in our subsequent bulletins, of course. Look out for that in Joy News Prime. Right now, though, we'll have to take a very quick break for sports on the pulse.